Just realize.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. As you see, I have First Lady with me again. She is here again. She's helping me out. Everybody give First Lady a little hand clap to yourself. I appreciate the help. No, I really do. I need it. I need the help. So I appreciate it. She has a bunch of things she could be doing, but she decided to stop in and help Juice. How are you doing this morning, First Lady?
I'm fine and well, thank you very much.
That was good. We have the beautiful Layla here as well. Y'all can't see her, but she over there somewhere. Say hello, Layla. She said hi. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but she said hello. So we gonna kind of piggyback off of what we talked about last week, but not necessarily the same topic. Just we're gonna stick with the same story with Job. Kind of like a prequel to what we were talking about last week.
Yeah.
Because last week we were talking about Job and repentance, and I gave kind of a little 3-step turned into 4-step, thanks to First Lady, process on repentance if you don't know where to start type of thing. But
can I jump in here?
Yes.
Okay, Ron was just laughing at Job. He was just cracking up because he said Job was, what did you say he took in the whole chapter that he was...
this man was complaining from chapter 3 to chapter 41.
He was going through it.
It's like 38 chapters of just complaining.
Just in sackcloth and ashes, just woe with me. That's a pity party.
Oh my
But
goodness.
I was telling Kayron that Job had a cushioned life. And so he went from everything good, living his best life, to like, what happened? So it was just like a...
Yeah. From my understanding, Job was probably the equivalent of a multi-millionaire,
yes.
if not billionaire.
Yes,
back in that day. He had a lot. He had beautiful kids, and it literally took all that away from him. I know most of you know the story, but just to kind of summarize, man, what happened was Job was living this cushion life that First Lady was speaking about, and he praised God, he worshiped God all the time. He always gave God reverence for the stuff that he had. And then Satan was like, he kind of challenged God. Like, if you took that stuff away from him, he probably wouldn't do all that. You know what I'm saying? He's doing most of that because you get them cushioned his life up. He got everything. You know what I'm saying? So,
got a hedge around.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word, a hedge. One thing I do want to focus on too, not focus on, but one thing I just want to put a point in is Job. What qualified Job for this mission was Job had the happiness outside of the money, and what happened afterwards is what proved that, which is why he felt he was qualified enough for Satan to test him. A lot of times people believe that like money will be the key to my happiness, but Job had it outside of it. And this whole thing of him complaining and losing everything and all that and coming back was kind of the testament to like how much joy, happiness, and peace within himself he had, with his relationship with God outside of all of his worldly possessions. So I just wanted to put a pin in that because that's important to me personally. It might be important to some of y'all later on.
I'm just reminded that Job's description of Job was a perfect and upright man, one who loved God and hated evil.
Mm-hmm.
That was a description of of Job. But the thing is, he was a righteous man. But I can compare Job to David because the Bible says we must know how to abase and abound. So we know how to be good on top and be good on when the things are on the bottom. But I contrast David with Job. David, God was his go-to every time he was in peril, and this man was in trouble all the time. But from the jump, from when they first anointed him the first time, he got anointed 3 times. Like he was in trouble all the time. People were after him, and I think that I don't know if you said this, but Christians cannot take nothing nowadays.
Yeah.
We want to be cushioned.
Very fragile.
Very fragile cushion. Christian fragility. We made it.
Fragile Christianity. Instead of fragile masculinity, fragile Christianity.
Yeah, they're just putting a lot of fragility on everything. But God is your strength, your very present help in a time of trouble. But we don't make God our go-to like David. Mm-hmm. Anytime David was in trouble, he would just tell his trouble who his God is. But I felt like it took Job a long time to go to God. He knew God as the law, as this is what you do. When this happens, you do this. He hated evil. He loved God, but he was just like give. You know how some people give because they want something. He was doing things according to the law, but he didn't really know God in his heart, in his mind. But there was a switch that came, and I think like nowadays a lot of us, I won't blame prosperity preachers, but kind of how what we're being taught is God's going to do it. God got it for you. It's coming. It's coming. So we're like this for God. Wait, am I on the camera? We're like this for God. Like, God, give me. Instead of like this for God. Because David was definitely like worship God. I praise God. I'll give whatever his trouble. I'll tell you about my God. But like you said, Job, it took how many chapters?
38 chapters. That's crazy, bro. I think this definitely speaks to me in particular in this moment that I'm in right now, because I'm in this period where I like my life is good. It's great. I have a newborn. I have a decent paying job. Like everything is, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? My spirituality is getting stronger. Like I feel like I'm good, but I know I'm meant for more. I know I am. So what happens is a lot of times we forget to keep the peace or find the peace in the place that we're in for when we get to where we're supposed to be going. So I'm kind of like this. For me, it's like because you in hindsight, you get to look at Job's story in totality. So when you look at it in totality, it's like it was a testament to the fact of like I pushed Job to the very edge, to the end of his rope, to his limit, maximum capacity, to see if he would break, and he didn't. And it was all because he had the joy of the Lord within him. He had peace within him. Now, it took some time, like we saying, it took a lot of complaining and moaning and talking to people that was giving him terrible advice, and it took a lot. But at the end of it, when he finally went to God and repented for everything that he, basically questioning God essentially, he kind of came to this place of peace where he was, and then everything was restored. He got everything back. I think he got more.
Yeah.
So, for me personally, like the story that it kind of speaks to me in that personally, because I'm just in this period now where I know I'm meant for more, but I'm here, and I have to learn to not be content, because content, that's a tricky one, but not content, but just to be at peace with where I am, even though I know I'm meant to for greater, meant to be more, meant to go more places, but be at peace with where I am, be happy where I am, instead of looking at the next person, what the next person got, trying to get what the next person got, trying to get what I know God has for me too early, because then you wind up like the dude that when got his inheritance early and blew it all. You know what I'm saying? You wind up like that. But just being at peace with the process of what God is taking you through. That was another thing that Job had to learn through this, is like being at peace with the process. He had to come to the understanding first that this is God putting me through a process, and then be at peace with the fact that I'm going through a process. Things happened to me that were terrible, and I mean terrible. Like, we read the story, but we don't ever really. If you personalize that story, could you imagine if you had all this stuff, all these kids, you ain't been doing nothing wrong, you've been praising God, worshiping, you didn't do anything wrong, and it's all just taken away from you, back to back to back to back to back. All your money, your houses, your kids. And the only thing you got left is your wife and your terrible friends. And they giving you terrible advice in the middle of all this. Could you just imagine, like, if you put yourself in that predicament? So I think, again, the process is one thing that Job teaches me in this, is like being at peace with the process.
You just said one thing. You said you have to be content. You have to learn how to be content, but also you need resilience to really, for a Christian, you definitely need to be content, because the Bible tells us we need to have to be content. But also you need resilience. You need to know how to bounce back. You need to know how to take command of authority over your situations and circumstances. But I see that with Job, he was actually going through the steps that people do. Like when you were in mourning, sackcloth and ashes, so people can see that you're mourning. People go through steps, like when they go through hard times, phone a friend, post Facebook posts, and people know that you're going through some things. Maybe they look up videos or whatever. There's certain steps people take. But then when all those were exhausted, and then he came to the end of his rope and stuff, but really when God started, like I said, he questioned God, but then God questioned him. And I think that's the beauty of it, because God, he's a very present help in the time of trouble. You have access to him. But when he began to ask Job the questions, Where were you when I did this? Where were you when I did that? And yes, you can boast in God, but God was letting him know. Let me tell you my stats, brother. Let me tell you my stats. Let me remind you of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and not because of what I can do for you, but who I am. Period. And that's greater than what I can do for you, because if you get hinged on God giving you or doing things for you, and then when that's taken away, just like the devil said, like, oh, he's not praising you for nothing. He praising you because you got him set up good.
Mm-hmm.
When that stuff is taken away, then you turn your back on, like Job's wife, and curse God and die and all that foolishness.
She gave the worst.
She gave the worst advice.
Oh my God.
Yes, and yet God let her stay. Anyway. Well, actually, it was the Satan said, "Let me do this to Job." So that probably was helping her. But when all of that back to back to back to back, just and to me, he wouldn't have enough time to even take in the first thing that happened and another thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes in life, you have that one thing on top of another. You like, I cannot bear it. And people do crumble and have mental breakdowns and all that, But God should be your go-to person, period. And He has all the answers. But we go through steps. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me do this. Let me go to this person. Let me pour a sip. Or a lot of times people go through all of these different things, but when God is right there.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it took a long time for Job to come around, but God spoke to him, and that's the beauty, that God will speak to you.
Yeah, I think even when I was, one of the things too about what Job was going through is that outside of that whole process that he went through, like we've been saying this whole entire time, the amount of time it took for him to get to where the real answer is. And before we cut the camera on, you said that you wanted to focus on where your help comes from. And that's really the bigger point here. It's just like, if you understand where your help comes from, it's not going to take you 38 chapters. It's not going to take you, I don't know how many days or weeks or whatever it took Job, but 38 chapters is a lot. And so I just know it's a lot.
He was saying a lot, too.
He was saying a lot. So I can only imagine how long it took, but it doesn't have to take you that long. It's like Job's story is like a cautionary tale. You don't have to go through that long, drawn-out process. It's kind of equivalent to, which I just found out, a couple of years ago, which sucks because I've been in church for a minute, but I just found out not too long ago, like, the whole Moses and Aaron thing, how it took Moses so long to get to the promised land, and he never made it, and Aaron got there like that.
Yeah.
It's just like when you're wholly 100% submitted to God's will, and you look to Him for your help, it's like a fast pass. Like if you go, it's like the fast pass to the right. You don't gotta wait in line. You don't gotta take all these extra steps. You don't got. Yeah, I know. As humans, we naturally, when we're grieving things, people grieve things. People grieve jobs. People grieve everything. But when we're grieving things as a human, naturally you want to go through this process because that's what the world makes you think is like the thing to do. They make you think like, I'm supposed to want to. Why would I not want to call my friend and vent? Or why would I not want to break down and have a nice cry? Or why wouldn't I want to do all these other things? But it's like, have your moments. It's okay, because there is a part of us that's human. Definitely. It's okay to cry. It's even okay to talk to it with a friend. Mm-hmm. But you got to understand where your true help is going to come from. So even you talking to it with your friend, it's just a venting session. Yeah. I'm not really soliciting you for the ultimate advice. That's between me and God. Yeah. I'm just kind of venting to you so I can have somebody to throw this out to. But really, we all have to recognize as Christians that our help comes from God. He's going to be the ultimate guidance for where we need to go in our time of grievance.
Yeah, God can use people in your behalf to talk to you, to give you a word. He definitely can. But it's about faith, really. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is about faith. Like you talk about Aaron and Moses. God chose Moses. Moses chose Aaron because Moses didn't have the confidence in himself. But if he had the confidence, and God would say, do this, do that, and every time God came through. So your confidence should have been in God, not in you. If God can turn water to blood and bring all these pestilence and 12 different things on your enemy, why can't you trust him fully? And I think he had just been worn down from the people that he struck that rock. But it was a faith thing about faith. Like you said, he got. And the thing is, when he had done it before, stretch forth your rod to the rock, and water came from the rock. Then next time he just hits the rock. But it should not be in you. That's the whole thing about faith. Your faith is in God and who God is. And I love how when you get one hurdle and you trust God came through, call them, do it again. That's how you got to be that friend, because I was in trouble. My friend just happened to call me. Wow. I was in trouble again. I called my friend. They came through.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times has God come through for you?
Oh, yeah.
But we just kind of, brush it off.
Now, see, that's the other thing, too. Going along with what I said, I'm glad you said that, because it kind of provides context to the whole look to God, not to people thing. There's this I don't, it's not a fable. I don't know what is those things that Jesus used to walk around telling people? There you go. It's like a parable that people got going around. And it's the story of the guy that was drowning in the 3 boats. So the story essentially goes like, there's a guy, and he was drowning, right? And he said he was praying to God, save me, save me. One boat went by, and he was like, hey, do you need help? The dude was like, no, I'm waiting on God. Boat kept going. Second boat, hey, do you need some help? No, I got it, I'm waiting on God. That went by. Third boat came. Same thing, I'm waiting on God. All right, cool. He dies. He goes to heaven and be like, hey, God, what happened, man? I sent you 3 boats. What were you, like, what were you doing? So, it's one of those things where it's like, when people say being open and to hearing the voice of God, like First Lady said, it can come in all different shapes and sizes, but you have to be ready to receive however God's going to give it to you. A lot of times, we come in with this preconceived way that we think God's going to deliver a message to us, and it hardly ever works out that way.
Yeah.
Hardly ever. I mean, me personally, I personally heard the voice of God one time in my life. That sounds pitiful, but God shows up for me in a lot of different ways, usually signs, speaking through people, but I heard it one time, and I used to spend so much time like that man waiting on them 3 boats, just trying to hear that voice again. And God was giving me so many signs, so many answers, so many responses to what I'm praying for, but I'm just, no, because it wasn't the voice. But you got to be open to what God is going to give to you, because he's not always going to give it to you in the way that you want it or the way that you thought he was going to give it to you.
And can I also say this? God can use other people, like you said, the 3 boats and everything like that. But also, it's more important to you to learn to go to God first, because then you give God the credit. If you called your friend and your friend gave you an encouraging word, then you're most likely to give your friend the credit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you go to your friends, or you go to this person, or go to your a spiritual leader.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to God, and then somebody else confirms what God says, you will definitely give God the credit for that.
Yeah.
So I think God should definitely be your first, not just your go-to, but your first two, because I don't want to X anybody else out. It's better when they confirm God. And God says, I will have no other God before me. Sometimes we don't realize that and keep going to this person, falling to this person, relying on this person. We have made that person our God.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely, God will have no other God before you. And his desire is to have a relationship with you. And it is to your benefit for you to foster that relationship with God,
mm-hmm.
and make it a habit of going to God first.
And conversely, if you just look at where you go first, then you will see what has become your God.
That is true.
A lot of people, especially nowadays, and I use social media a lot. I love social media. I love TikTok, Instagram, all that. So I talk about it a lot, but I do love it. It's good. It's great when you use it correctly. But a lot of people turn it into their God. It's the first place they run when they're in trouble. And I get it. I get it on a certain level, because there's a level where a lot of us, we want instant gratification.
Yeah.
We don't want to wait on God to give the answer. We just want it to be so quick, and that's what social media gives you. It gives you the ability to put something out and get instant gratification. Somebody to either just respond back and say, "Oh, I agree with that," or somebody to give you their advice, or whatever the case may be that you're looking for. It's instant. You post it, and within 2 hours, you got 30 people giving you what you want. So I understand it on that level. But as Christians, we also have to understand how dangerous that is. Because like me and First Lady and I spoke about last week, when you open yourself up, anything can come in. And you don't know what the spirit of these people are that's responding to you is carrying, that you letting in because you done made social media your God. So again, it's not even just social media. There are people that have made weed their God. People that have made that drink their God. There's people that have made dopamine their God. When I say dopamine, it's any sense of instant pleasure.
Yes, I was going to say that. Entertainment, instant gratification. I'm going to tell on myself because sometimes when I can't sleep, I grab my phone. And then, I like the World of Africa when they do little dances, all that, and they're dancing with the jollof rice and all that. I like that.
Dancing with the rice?
Yeah. You have a plate of food in your hand and you're dancing with it. There's a line dance type of thing.
It's kind of a cemetery.
No, you have a plate of food and you're just dancing. Oh, I'll explain. So I go to that and I'll scroll through that, and it's just instant gratification, and it soothes you for a while. But if I have checked myself and said you need to be praying instead of going, and when I pray, I have peace, and I wake up with peace. Even though it's very entertaining, I like the World of Africa, all the dances. And sometimes when I get up in the morning, I look at the World of Africa, I go right back to it. Mm-hmm. So it's just a habit of going to certain things that what you like, dancing, songs, whatever. Beyonce, I was looking at Blue Ivy. Somebody sent me her dance thing, and it keeps popping up. And every time I watch it,
that algorithm gonna get you.
Yes, that's like you were saying. They're sending you stuff, and if I pull down, I never pull down on the notifications. Very rarely, because there's just stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and things that you have already looked at, and they're gonna send it to the algorithm. I don't subscribe to this woman's page, but Sister Warren sent me is it a YouTube page or whatever? She has a thing that she does, and what do you call them when somebody talks? Podcast, thank you. And she sent me that, and I watched it, and now every time it just comes up, notification. Mm-hmm. Like you said, we don't realize that we are open to things and on the algorithm, but I want to set my algorithm on God, and I don't want to be seem too corny and like that. But even when I was young, I realized when I would pray and I would be soothed, and so when I went off to the army. Not just soothe, but have peace. When I went up to the army and I had trials and tribulations, I went to church. I put on that gospel music because I realized that's really was my help coming from. Now, I'm not saying I didn't drink and everything. I was doing what the people do. Mm-hmm. I was doing all that, drinking, going to party on Saturday. But Sunday, I took my behind to church because that's really where. And then one day, I told my friend, I said, I'm tired of the club. It's the same old people doing the same old things. But I love to dance back in the day. Now my bones ache. But I was like, the same old people doing the same old thing. It's just boring. And they said, yeah, we felt the same way too. So we just stopped going to clubs and we just would sit and talk all the time. But then we had to really say, okay, I know where my help comes from. I know where I get peace. I know where I get filled, and so I have to keep coming back to the well that would never run dry because I didn't want to feel corny, back in the day.
I mean, it happens. I have my moments. I remember. I want to say when I was, and this is actually gonna bring me to another point that's slightly separate from the main point, but I think it's important. I remember when I was. I want to say maybe when I was like 24 24-ish, 23, 24-ish, probably about 4 years ago. I had these group of friends. They were like college girls. They were all in college. They were like 21, 22. They were all in college, right? Group of them, probably like 8 of them. And what I started, like, they would invite me over for game nights. So we go to the game nights. And what I noticed is a couple of them, they would drink to a point where they couldn't comprehend what was going on around them. So I usually wound up being, like, if they wanted to go to, like, parties and things, I wound up being the designated driver.
So was I.
So I'll be the guy that, you drive. I might drink a little bit, but not too much to where, because, I got to drive. And also looking out for these, because, again, these are young women. We already know how the world is nowadays. People preying on women and stuff. So I always wound up being the guy that was looking out for them and things of that nature. And I think it had gotten to a point where my dad started to notice it. Not necessarily knowing what I was doing, but just know I would go out and come home late a lot. And so, of course, as any father would be, he got kind of worried, especially with him being a pastor at the time, not necessarily a bishop yet. With him being a pastor at the time, he was worried. So we had a conversation, and I remember the thing that he said that stuck out to me, because once I explained to him what I was doing, he kind of gave me something that stuck out for me, and it sticks with me a lot. He was like, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. Just don't let your good be evil spoken of. And what he meant by it was essentially like, yes, what you're doing is for good. It's to help people, but be careful, because when you in the belly of the beast, it's easy to get sucked in and to get locked into what other people are doing, because it was starting to reach a point where I was going without them. It started off, I was just going to help them, make sure they was okay. I had my little, I like to dance a little bit, so I had a little fun too, but it was mainly like, I want to make sure that they're okay as I'm going to this. And then it started to be like when they weren't going, because, they would have finals and midterm and stuff. I'm going to go. I get to have fun now. And I would just go without them. And, it became that. So I think what that taught me and what this teaches Job, because, again, remember, when Job lost everybody, the people around him were terrible influences. They were really bad influences on him. And I think it speaks to that resilience thing that First Lady was speaking about, because while you're seeking God, there will be things and distractions around you, but you have to be able to box all that stuff out and focus on the main thing. Now, again, it took Job 38 chapters to effectively do that. But his story is so we don't have to do that. So we can, because, again, even back to the whole fragile Christianity thing, a lot of people, they can't exist around things that are ungodly. They can't exist around it. Like, it's like, if I'm around it, oh my, no. But it's like, in the Bible, if you're called to help these people.
Yeah, Jesus went to all the dirty places to the dirty people.
He did. If you can't stand being around them, then again, we're not saying do what they do and be them. But if you can't just take being around them without feeling like, oh my God, the sin's going to rub off on me. No, if you can't be around it, how can you effectively do your job as a Christian?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We have to learn how to, my dad speaks about being a wounded healer. And that one sticks with me too a lot, because that's essentially what we are. While you're in the midst of going through what you're going through, seeking God for what you need him to do in your life, there's going to be people around you that need healing too. You can't run away from them. You can't shrug them off like, oh no, it's dirty, I don't want to be a part of that. No, you got to be able to stand in the fire, essentially, and not get burnt.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I think some people miss it. They get saved and they just zip themselves up in a Ziploc.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're saved and you have given yourself to Christ, you have to open yourself up. So you become, I'm connected to him. He uses me toward them. But you have to be connected.
Yep.
And the more you connect and go to him, the better it is for you. Be resilient. Bounce back. Know where your help comes from.
I like that. It's a perfect way to end it. So thank you guys for watching, sticking with us. If you came back and watched, I appreciate you for coming back in and watch. We'll be back next week. We're going to try to be here every week. Hold me to it. If we not here for a week, you call me, a first lady, and be like, y'all lied. Y'all said y'all was going to be here every week. And I promise you I'll respond to you. But thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we hope we said something that sat on your heart or that helps you throughout your week. God bless y'all. Have an amazing day. Y'all be safe.